Tell me what NaCl is. It's ionic. So if it's ionic, what would it be? Strong electrolyte. CH3OH is covalent. I get a lot of it's a base, but what did I tell you had to be on the base yesterday? And what on the front of it? A metal had to be on the front of it. Is CH3 a metal? No, that's why it's not a base. So I think it was Diego who yelled out covalent, and that is correct because it's all nonmetals. So since it's all nonmetals, what would it be? Non-electrolyte. All right, number 3. Somebody besides Diego, give me an answer. It's an acid. How do we know it was an acid? Started with an H. So the question is it a strong acid or a weak acid? Is it one of the 7? It is strong. So that makes it a what? Strong electrolyte. All right, number 4. What'd you put, Ava? Covalent. You've got them all nonmetals there. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are all nonmetals. So if they're all nonmetals, what would it be? A non-electrolyte. Covalent is a non. All right, NaOH. I hear base. How do we know it's a base? Ends in OH. Okay, even if you had said ionic because it's a metal and a non-metal, you'd still be okay here. All right, so if it's a base, does it have a group 1 or group 2 element on the front? So does that make it strong or weak? Strong. All right, what can you tell me about H2SO4? It's an acid. So is it one of the 7 strong?
Yes.
So what is it? Strong electrolyte. All right, number 7, CSF. You have, it is ionic. So it would be a what? Strong electrolyte. All right, what can you tell me about H? Or sorry, the 8 number with it starting with the H is a what? It's an acid. So is it a strong or a weak acid? It's a weak acid. Okay. Number 9. Acid, strong or weak? It's weak. All right. Number 10. PCl3 is a what? It's covalent, so it would be a what?
Would it be a non-electrolyte?
It's a non-electrolyte. All right. I skipped the one at the top. If we had a conductivity tester and we could actually test the conductivity, if there was a quiet beep with a flickering light, which one do you think it would have been? Okay. If there was a loud beep and a bright light, it would be, and if it had no light, it'd be a non. Okay. Any questions about that?
Wait, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so for it to be ionic, it would be strong.
Yes. Anytime it's ionic, it's strong. A strong acid, a strong base, and ionic are the 3 things that are strong electrolyte.
So any base?
Any strong base. How do you tell if it's a strong base? Group 1 or group 2, and it's on OH.
Did they say this class ended at 2:40?
Yes.
Oh, they said
You're lying.
I just want to see.
2 hours?
I just want to see the look on her face. It's 1:40. You go to lunch from 1:40 to 2:10, and then you finish the day in 4th period.
So we're not going to second?
I'm going to second.
Wait, 1:40 to 2:10.
1:40 to 2:10, 30 minutes. We have the longest lunch of the group. And don't be shocked if you're in the cafeteria and they suddenly say, go on to 4th period, because that wouldn't shock me either, because lunch ladies are staying longer than they normally do to serve lunch.
They'll be A-okay. They don't leave here until like 2:30 anyway. They get paid this way.
Well, that may be, but they're not being paid to gossip. So they can stay and hang out as long as they like, but they have a pretty fixed schedule.
This is get paid.
All right. So questions about anything else other than what Jackie asked? We just went over the electrolyte homework you sent you.
Okay.
You got a note for me or anything?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're done with this. All right. Let's talk about solubility graph. See what you came up with reading that. In case you see any of this. Let's get rid of that.
Okay, but what specifically is being on this quiz?
Anything from what we did on the lab to the 2 homework sheets.
Oh, the one where we crossed out stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many questions?
Technically, I think I numbered them as 4, but they're multiple parts. So it's hard to say exactly how many.
Probably like that, I agree.
Yes.
A range.
Range.
A range of questions.
A range of questions. There are, I think, 7 on the front page and 5 on the back page. So technically, I think there's 12.
Of what?
Various things. All right, let me make my graph a little bigger. Now, you should have had a line that looked something like this when it focuses there when you drew this. Okay, it's not straight, and mine's largely an estimate. I didn't spend a lot of time drawing the thing. So, once you have that drawn, I asked you some questions. Where are the questions? So I don't have to keep turning this piece of paper upside down. All right, number 1, or A. How does the solubility of silver nitrate vary with temperature? What can you tell me the graph line does? It goes up. So if it goes up, solubility increases, decreases, or stays the same? Increases. Remember, you're going to see increases on the exam. You're not going to see goes up. All right, so in B, there are actually 3 questions. And in each of these, you can have a range of answers because you're estimating. So if you look up 35 degrees Celsius and you read up to your graph, what would you estimate there? All right, I hear 270, 265, 260. So we're all between 260 and 275? Yes? All right, how do you write your answer? All right, you write 270 grams per 100 grams of water, okay? Because your y-axis is given to you in grams of water. I'm going to show you how to change that here very shortly. All right, when you look at the second one, 55, what'd you get there? I hear 400, 413. What'd you say? 403. I went even lower. I had about 380. Okay, 375. So if you're between Ava's 375 and what was the highest I heard, 413, if you're between that range, then you're fine. And the answer again should have grams per 100 grams of water. All right, the 55 or 75 degrees Celsius, what'd you come up with there? I hear 550, 538, 445, 545. Are we all in that range for those of us who did it? Okay, if you are, you're fine. These are not going to be exact answers. If you counted by 5s here, yours would have been a little easier to estimate, but I did by 10s because I was lazy. All right, letter C. Here I gave you the 275 grams per 100 grams. So go to 275, read over, and then read down, and what you come up with? 35, 36, 38. Are we all in that range? All right. The last one wanted you to figure out if it was saturated, unsaturated, or supersaturated. All right. So it gave you 100 grams and 100 grams of water. Does the 100 grams of water matter? No. No, because it's along here. So they gave you 100 grams and 10 degrees Celsius. So you're going to go 10 degrees Celsius and 100 grams and put a dot right there. Where is it on the graph? Is it above, below, or on the line? So if it's below, we say it's what? Unsaturated. The second question, same thing, except they gave you 325 and 35. So if I estimate 35 and go up 325, I am somewhere along in there. I'm where?
Supersaturated.
I'm above the line, so I'm what? I'm supersaturated because I'm above. I was unsaturated for the first one because I was below, and I'm above, so I'm supersaturated. Questions about that? Now, let's say I asked you this question. All right, let me get something darker I can write with that you'll be able to see. Sounds like the alma mater. All right. Let's say that I say how many grams of solute dissolve in 200 grams of water at 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, and if you want to write it on your worksheet. So, how would you find the answer if I alter the amount of water to 200? Does this graph read 200 grams? No. We have to find the answer in 100 grams and then change it to 200. So when you read the graph at 40 and you read up, not going to be exact, so we're going to estimate. It's going to be just a little below 300. Let's just go 290. Okay, 290 grams per 100 grams of water. Now, I said per 200 grams of water, right? So how did I change the water? I doubled it, right? Or times it by 2. So what do you think I'm going to do to that number?
Double it.
I'm going to double it or times it by 2. So 290 times 2 is what? 6. What is it? 58. So 580. Okay? 580 grams per 200 grams of water. Does that make sense if I ask you something like that? All right. Questions about anything on the homework? You need your periodic tables and you need your reference tables because you will have to write equations for me today. 2 of them.
Equations.
Yeah, you gotta double displace. Find the nets. All 3 of them are on my desk right there.
Appreciate it. We don't have a second period. Do we?
Nope.
Do we need to watch the video or anything?
Check the tail end and see if I got the new stuff, only because you're gonna see what I'm teaching on the exam, but you choose.
We don't have a second. All right. Yeah. You got home? Yeah.
You can't remember the second period
She
is.
got a doctor's appointment on 15. I know. So there ain't no point. It's 1 o'clock.
Hey, I can't quit.
I didn't hand you one?
No.
I swore I just did.
Oh, wait. I thought it was just a sheet.
I thought I did.
So you want us to like double this?
So number 1 in A, I want you to just do the double splice. Okay, that's what I'm asking for in A.
Just do the rest.
And then B, if you need to do the work step below it in A, it's fine. I'm not going to yell at you doing the work step on the quiz. Okay, but in A, I want the double displacement. In B, I want you to label and circle. I don't want you to circle. I want you to write out the spectator ions and the net in C, just like you did on the lab. Okay? And then same thing in number 2. And I tried to leave enough space that you had space to be able to work, but if you don't have enough, I guess let me know when I hand you a sheet of paper.
MN04, what's the charge?
On what?
MN04.
MN04 would be an 8 because O has a -2, so it would cancel out.
Okay.
So
So
if
the
you-
overall charge is,
Well, it depends. Are we talking the overall charge of the compound or just MN?
on comment.
0, because all the positives and the negative oxidation numbers add up to give you 0.
It's not on our list.
Okay, yeah, they all add up to 0. Thank you. You're welcome.
I figured that when I uncrossed, but I want to make sure.
Yes.
You're trying to trip me up.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was answering the correct question.
Who's on sodium?
Huh?
Mine's sodium.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Oh, that's a polyatomic ion.
Yeah.
So it has a -1 charge. Mn would be +7 and O would be -2. That's why it adds up to -1.
Okay. And now the plus 1 on sodium.
Yes. So the 2 1s cancel out.
You know I have it right there.
Yeah, I know. We should remind me that. He has it on his oxidation sheet or reference in physical science too.
Okay.
I think he was just asking me a technical question.
Okay. Do you want us to balance the first one?
Tell you what, if you forget,
Oh, here you go. I don't even want to hear it.
I would love for you to balance the first one, but if you forget, I won't even take off. I will. Okay. There's a backside for those of you who don't know to turn the paper over. I don't want anybody to blame me for getting questions wrong and they don't turn the paper over. I hand it back.
It's like I gotta have copies for Monday.
I may pull it off if it's done to run something too.
That's fine, because I just need copies for Monday.
Jesus, please be sure to check your email. The schedule's on there now. Thank you.
With one job, yeah.
What do you want us to do for number 3?
What do you mean number 3? This is disassociate. Remember? That was the step we did before we learned to do precipitation.
I don't know about the precipitation.
You don't remember the whole lab we did? That's the front side.
Wait, do you, for C, for number 2, do you want the definition?
I want you to tell me what's the precipitate in that equation. Compound name, formula, ion, whatever you think it is in that equation.
Wait, what you mean?
I won't tell you what I mean.
No, I'm saying.
In that equation, there is a precipitate. I want you to write down the formula for what you think the precipitate is in question number 2. Whatever you think it is.
have a question. Is this a mistake? Does that understand?
Yes. And number 3, where it says aqueous in the equation and not solid, it's the same compound that's in the equation below. So it should just say solid. It's not meant to trick you. And you're still working. Got what, 3? All right, anybody else still working? All right, punch first to the front. Yeah. I don't know how you keep holding two of them, but it seems a little excessive.
We got a quiz. When can I make it up next week?
You don't have second period today. I haven't decided what I'm doing with y'all yet.
Oh, wait, got second period?
Yeah. Where have you been?
Huh?
I said, where have you been?
I don't know. Nobody told me anything. I'm gonna leave.
We're in third period till 1:40 if you have third lunch. And then we're going to lunch and then fourth period finish out of that.
Oh, okay, well, I'm leaving too.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you for picking up my essay, even though it's printed funny.
Oh, I can't fix that.
I know Jessup said he was gonna count on one. I was like, take over with my printer.
You sent it to me. I pulled it up and said, I got you.
You were nuts.
All right. All right. I want to do the solubility graph I just handed you real quick. It shouldn't take us long, right, Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did good.
Good. Those are much easier for me to grade if y'all did well. They're a pain if you did terrible.
What?
Sorry, Ms. Wall, that does not instill me with confidence over there.
Yeah, I feel like I'm off.
All right, see what you can answer real quick. This is based on last night's homework. I'm not going to give you very long. Answer the questions. Got fun.
A dress. I like that. A t-shirt dress.
Now, find the answers quickly. We're not gonna do this for long.
Never.
You will see one of these on the exam most likely.
What is
Bruh.
that?
Solubility graph.
Why does it look like that?
It looks like what's on your paper.
Exactly. But why?
Because odds are good, the one you will get on the exam will not have one line on it. It will probably have at least 4. So
We didn't have a practice before.
that's why we're doing it now.
But we don't.
It works the same way. Every question on there works like what we just did. You have to find the right line.
Girl, I don't
So in
know.
question 1, it says, what is the solubility of what? Or which solid is least soluble to 20? What do you look for to know least soluble?
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
Top or bottom of the graph? So why are you telling me you don't know how to do this?
Because you don't understand.
It's not about you don't know how.
Yes, it
Not
is.
wanting to do it is different than not knowing how to do it. That's how I need an answer. Tell you what, consider this quiz number 2. Put your name at the top, answer the 10 questions, and I'll collect it in about 10 minutes. Then stop and find me some answers. Or we can go that route.
It's because I think see the substitute and have KCL.
It's KCLO 3.
Can you replace it for the?
No, it just counts as 1.
No, you
Plus the one
just
we already took. I'll just grade more this weekend. I don't have anything planned and it's gonna rain half the weekend. I don't mind. I'll grade 2 quizzes for y'all. Now find me some answers.
Wait, there's not even 200 on here. It says be dissolved in 200 grams. There's not 200.
this. I'd be like, oh.
We did this.
I'm glad somebody was listening to me. May only been Diego, but at least there was one.
What?
One lone soul in the
We do
room.
like 5 by 2.
You said what, girl?
I said, what girl? I said you weren't listening.
Okay, then. Can we
I did the question in the opening.
Oh.
If you have that compound, read the solubility in 100 grams of water. And then because the water's doubled, you have to do what?
Oh.
Wait, we didn't.
Well, we didn't really do it opening. We put the homework there. But when we went over the homework, we talked about how to do that question, knowing I was going to give you this.
I don't know.
Potassium chloride. It's not. So this is a quiz.
Can you help me on
Jim, stop saying that.
It says which one is least soluble. Do you go to the top of the graph or the bottom of the graph to find least soluble? Bottom. So find 20 degrees, find the line that's least
Okay.
soluble, and find the name or the compound that's written above the line.
I still don't. You know what? That's nothing. Nothing.
For Jackie, which compound does it tell you about in number 2?
KCL.
All right, so it says potassium chloride. That's what number 2 says is potassium chloride? Before I or highlight the wrong line?
Yeah.
All right, so potassium chloride would be this line right here. Okay? What temperature does it give you, Jackie? It gave you what? 80? All right, so 80 up to the line for KCL and read over gives you the solubility. What's the solubility? 50 what? Per 100 grams of water. Now, the question is, Jackie so eloquently pointed out, says, girl, it's got 200 grams of water up there. Okay? So what did we talk about when we went over the homework if the question says to you per 200 grams of water? It's doubled, right? So if it's doubled, what does that mean we would multiply by in math class? 2. So it's 50 times 2. So the answer is 100 grams per 200 grams of water. Does that help? Now, can you do number 3?
Yeah.
Really, Ava? Do you need me to come over there?
Wait, for 3, you can't even read where it's at.
You got to estimate. For the love of God, you've been in math class your whole life.
I know. That's why.
Estimate. Don't put it up. Put it up. Find me an answer to number 3.
I have a question for you.
What is the question?
They can't be the same dude you were.
Right, they will have.
It was Sierra.
Yeah, it was Sierra.
I was on my phone
Sierra told
because
me.
I was bored, senseless, and
Probably text me.
it was hot, and I could have been texting Miss Bowers. Why was I standing there? Because I had a bulging disc in my spine. And I had sat in the chair an hour and a half. I couldn't make it any longer. They're fabulous.
Where did she live?
Changes 0 to 1.
This wall was real.
I probably was texting with Powers.
I have a friend.
Oh, yeah, that's what it's saying.
Did you finish?
Yep.
Okay, decide if I go hard. That's some good stuff. Now go sit down over there and answer me some questions.
I broke my back. I'm gonna have me a disc.
Go ahead, do another one.
Another cartwheel?
I guess. I know, it looks like, you know, when before you get it, they have like the Right. She was like, my body, my choice.
Shit, Emily.
This is hungry. Let's go outside. Got class outside. Oh.
I remember we used to make videos.
Her and Jay did your
Work.
I think that is so.
I don't care. No fuck. What's wrong with y'all?
Go to
Miss Wall, I'm ready.
You've answered all 10.
I'm ready.
Okay, it's better than none.
All right, so if we look at question 1, what does it say about 20 degrees Celsius? Least soluble, right?
Yeah.
So find 20 degrees Celsius on the graph.
I didn't know you were recording.
Yep.
I wish I would have known that.
Go sit down. All right, so there's 20 degrees. Which line is the lowest on the graph?
KCL.
So
Wait,
this
is 5 or 3?
it's an ugly 3. KCLO 3. All right, number 2. I have mine handy, so I have the questions. All right, number 2 we just did. Number 3, at 40 degrees Celsius and potassium nitrate. So which one's potassium nitrate?
Okay, NO3.
All right, so this curvy line up here, and it said what, 40 degrees? So 40 degrees over to here and over, as Jackie pointed out, is in the middle. So what'd you estimate? 42 is fine. Anybody want 43? That's fine too. All right, 42 grams per 100 grams of water. All right. Now, the question said, though, per how much? Per 300 grams. So this time they did what with the water? Multiplied it by 3 or tripled it, right? So what do we do to the 42? So what'd you get? 126 grams. Now, if you had something like 43 there, your answer would have been 129 grams per 300 grams. It does not have to be identical to what everybody else in the room had because we're estimating there. All right, number 4. Which salt shows the least change from 0 to 100? What do you look for least change? The flattest, okay? And ACL was the right answer. All right, number 5. It wants to know about sodium nitrate and whether it's saturated, unsaturated, or supersaturated. So sodium nitrate is this line right here. And it tells us we have what? 90 and what temperature? Okay, 30 and 90 would put us, let me change colors.
It is.
Right there. What is it?
Super. So even if it's that close,
I'll say saturated.
I said unsaturated on mine. It's below the line. Where does it have to be saturated? On the line. It's not on the line. Okay, well, it's not on the line, so I said unsaturated. All right. Number 6, it wants to know how much is precipitated from 80 to 50. Now, this one usually hangs people up. Read what you know. If it tells you a temperature of 80 to 50, what can you find at 50? Well, first of all, what compound did they give us in what line? Potassium chlorate is this line right here. Okay, so if that's our line, all right, at 50 degrees, what can we find at that line? You can find the amount of solute is 20, right? So that's 20 grams for that one. And at 80, what do you find for that temperature? So you got 2 solubilities, and it's asking how much would precipitate. Even if you don't know the answer, what do you think you would do with those numbers? Subtract is what you do. 40 minus 20 is 20. All right, number 7. Who shows a decrease in solubility? Who decreases? In H3, because the graph does what? It goes down. Number 8. Who is the most soluble at 10? Why'd you pick Ki? That's right. Find your 10. This is 10 right here. Who's the highest on the line at 10? Ki. Okay. Number 9. Which salt is least soluble at 50? KClO3. Okay. Right there. And then the last one is a trick question for most of you. The question says, which salt is least soluble at 90? A salt, I told you this a long time ago. I don't know how well y'all remember vocabulary words. A salt is an ionic compound. So it has to be ionic. Is NH3 ionic?
No.
It's covalent. It's 2 nonmetals. So find the next one, but is ionic. NaCl. And we call it salt because it's one that's very, very common. It may even be the most common. Okay? Questions about that?
No.
All right. Find your notes. We're going to talk about like dissolves like.
You gonna do notes?
Yeah, I'm going to do notes.
I don't know why you're teaching us and half of the class ain't even here.
It's not my problem.
They don't even have a video.
Right. Last school year.
Who's here? Who's not?
2 weeks.
Let's start with
Boy,
For real.
don't have to. She said like nobody wore it, and then it was fine.
all right. So like dissolves like. Now, I don't know if you'll see a question on this on the exam or not, so we're just going to hit the highlights. Some of you will remember how to do this, and some of you won't, unfortunately. So it's a nice place to do just a snippet of review also.
Like
All right.
dissolves like?
Like dissolves like. So what that means is polar compounds dissolve what? Polar compounds. That's why I said it's a nice place to add a little snippet of review.
It's not crazy.
Okay? Non-polar compounds dissolve what? Okay, polar compounds dissolve polar compounds. Non-polar dissolve non-polar. Now, the problem comes in when we talk about ionic and alcohols. Ionic compounds are solids. So if ionic compounds are solids, can they dissolve in an ionic compound? No. Okay? So which one of these two things do you think ionic compounds are going to dissolve in?
Non-polar.
Polar. Take it just a second. The reason is because water okay? Water has sort of a positive charge on hydrogen and a negative charge on oxygen. Now, is everybody okay with why I said that? What oxidation numbers hydrogen have? What oxidation numbers oxygen have? That's why I said that. Okay? Now, if ionic compounds, such as let's just take salt, is put in water, what charge does the Na have?
5 plus 1.
Chlorine.
-1.
So the oxygen is going to try to attack and pull off the which one?
-1.
Let me ask you this. It's been a long time, I'm sure, for a lot of you, and you may have had a really crappy experience in other classes. But when we talk positive and negative charges, do you remember what will attract and what will repel?
Positive
Positive and will do what? Attract. Two negatives will do what? Repel. They'll push apart. So when you look at this, the sodium has what charge? A plus. So who's going to attract it there?
I mean, nitrogen, oxygen. I mean, whatever it is, it's Na. It had an N. I was thinking of nitrogen.
Okay. So sodium being positive is attracted to the oxygen, which is negative. The hydrogen, which is positive, is attracted to the what? Chlorine, which is negative. And those charges can help pull things apart. Do nonpolar compounds have charges that are as strong or likely to pull those things apart?
Yeah.
The answer is no. Okay? They just don't. Most nonpolar compounds are going to be made of metals or nonmetals. What do you think? Non-metals, okay? And they're not going to have those positive and negative charges to do that. Now, the last one is alcohols. Change colors. Alcohols can dissolve alcohol. There's a door right there. Go spit in the grass.
There was a trash can right there.
They having to spit, Jackie.
Just don't spit in the trash can again. Spit outside. It's just gross.
It's nothing.
And then come back and just spit.
Let me think about it for a minute. No.
But you said let's go outside.
Go outside, spit, and then come back in.
Let's go just class out here.
That's not my problem. Close the door.
Wait. So alcohols is all that.
Everything except which thing did I not put there? Alcohols will not dissolve iron.
So basically
It's everything except the iron. Now, the problem for most people is remembering what types of things are polar and nonpolar. So, what is the one compound that everybody in here should know is polar?
Yes.
Yes, it's not an answer. What is the one compound everybody in here should know is polar?
Water.
Water, okay? So, if you don't know that water is polar, I would learn that. I would also learn that NH3 is polar. Now, the reason they're polar, if we look back down here at the one I drew, what does the O have on the central atom?
Right.
Dots. What are those dots named? You remember? What? What kind of electrons? They are valence, yes. They start with an L. Lone pairs of electrons. Now, you can also call them non-bonding pairs or unshared pairs, but they're electrons that are not in bonds. So when you have those lone pairs, that makes the molecule polar. If we had NH3, which is another common liquid, it has lone pairs on the end, which is why it's polar. Okay? Lone pairs make it polar. I know y'all did. That's why I said for some of y'all this was going to be rough. Non-polar. Okay? Non-polar liquids, for the most part, we don't know a lot of non-polar liquids because we haven't done a lot. CCl4 is one of the ones we did do. It has 4 carbons, and there are no lone pairs. If there are no lone pairs, it's going to be what? It's going to be what if there are no lone pairs and all the bonds are the same? It's going to be non-polar. Yes, it would be tetrahedral too, but I wasn't asking for the geometry. All right? Bromine, one of your diatomics, is going to be non-polar. Okay? Now, from there, two that I can think of that you might see are toluene and benzene. All right? I don't think you would. I would think they'd limit themselves to something like CCl4 or bromine because those are the things you should be able to draw. Toluene and benzene are just common solvents. Now, we want to figure out if things are soluble or not. So, does everybody have the rules?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I say, will Ki dissolve in? And I put water, I put alcohol, and I put CCl4, we should be able to figure that out. Now, the first thing you have to know is what Ki is. What is Ki?
Potassium.
Okay, think back to your rules that are right here. All right, is it a polar compound, a non-polar compound, an ionic compound, or an alcohol? First of all, to identify an alcohol, it's always going to end in OL. Okay, so like methanol, ethanol, they're all going to end in OLs. Okay, it's an ionic compound, right? So if this is ionic, all right, propanol would work too. All right, so yeah.
We don't get the science joke.
What's funny about it?
You really say.
It's just got to do with the number of carbons, hydrogens, and a functional group of OL. Now, when you look at the rules, what do ionic compounds dissolve in? Do they dissolve in polar liquids? Yes. Ionic dissolves in polar, but that's it. Okay? Does it dissolve in an alcohol? No. Does it dissolve in non-polar? No. So when you go back over here and I ask you the question, what can you tell me about water? What is water? Is it polar, non-polar, or an alcohol? It's polar. Okay? This was an alcohol, and this is what? CCl4 is what? Non-polar. So based on the rules, which of these will Ki dissolve in? In the water. That's a yes. These two are no's. They're not going to dissolve in an alcohol. It's not going to dissolve in a non-polar liquid. It will only dissolve in a polar liquid. Now, what if I said will methanol
How go spit?
outside?
I told him, see.
Okay. Jackie, what are you doing? Hacking up half of breakfast? Because you're out there long enough.
She's spitting on her.
Spit and then come back in again.
I
I
can
know,
suck
she
on
spit
these
my trash
diamonds.
can. I want you to go outside. Even Dr. Phillips thinks that's gross.
Okay, that's not gross. You spit.
Not in trash cans, I don't.
I mean, it was only. Yeah, you do. You. First of all, that's nasty.
That might be that smoker stuff. All right, so what can you tell me about methanol? It's an alcohol because it ends in OL. Okay? That tells you it's an alcohol.
I'm dead.
Okay? What can you tell me about water again? It's polar. All right, that ends in OL, so it's an alcohol. And this one was non-polar. So what will the alcohol dissolve in? Every bit of it. The only thing alcohol won't dissolve is what? Ionic.
So, question. What happens whenever you ask something about something that's like, how are we supposed to figure out if it's polar or not polar? We can like draw it out. We gotta draw it out.
If you don't know, I tried to give you some helpful tips.
No, you didn't.
Well, you gonna ask something.
The mailbox free?
I know, I'm about to hand you your homework.
Miss Wall.
Now, all you're doing is the front side. Determine yes or no. Will it dissolve?
You.
The math,
Stressing
we're gonna do
me
Monday.
out.
Tuesday, sorry, Tuesday.
Another one.
I'm gonna pass it back to
No,
you.
it ain't
Who asked the gym? Or who?
No, it sounded like you spit a.
Now, me.
Nothing.
Put your name on it, stick on my computer up there.
You said. That's a little video.
I'm not gonna show you.
All right, does everybody have a worksheet? We're all doing it right. Tell me yes or no.
Yes.
No, wait, where did you put my homework?
Where'd I put your what?
My homework.
You were out of your seat. I didn't give you one.
What?
Here, Jackie. I don't want you to be deprived.
Yeah, because you're talking about